This is Wes Lassiter playing the banjo at the Red Drum Pottery. In addition to turning out some beautiful pottery, they also play some pretty good music. We had a chance to pick some with Wes and find out about the Frisco Jubilee. I'm sure they could tell by the instruments and the music that that has something to do with the Red Drum Pottery.
Oh, well, Ken, that's the part of the pottery that has the music is really something called the Frisco Jubilee, something we started a couple years ago when we moved into this big space in the pottery, and we didn't have anything to do with this back room. But I knew something to do with it, and that was to make some good music and bring in good friends, and we do sort of a camaraderie among people. We have shows every Thursday night coming up this year. It was Friday nights, but we're going ahead and moving it to Thursday nights this year. And it's a 2-hour show, goes from 8 to 10 o'clock. We have storytelling, and then we have poetry. And of course, our band, the Diamond Shoals Band, plays every night. And we have Martin Garrish, who comes up from Ocracoke, and Calvin and Johnny, and that sort of thing. We just we've been having a great time doing this.
I understand you've also been working on a DVD, but before we get into that, let's talk about the pottery a little bit more.
Well, my wife was the one who taught me all about pottery. I didn't know even what a kiln was when she asked me, and I started dating her. Of course, I liked her a whole lot, and I started coming down on the weekends to help her out in Ocracoke. Our business started out in Ocracoke, and she taught me how to make pots, which took her a long time, and I wasted a whole bunch of her clay and a whole bunch of her time and a whole bunch of her money, but she stuck in there with me and decided to marry me. And so we have built the pottery, and the pottery's gotten bigger, and we're getting pretty well known for our pottery and our making and that sort of thing. And we have the only wood-firing kiln in eastern North Carolina, which is a very special thing. His name's Archie, and he's about 17 feet long, and takes about 40 to 50 hours to fire him. We fire solid with wood, and we build it up to 2,300 degrees. And we do platters and functional wear and that sort of thing. And then my wife has a pattern called the Red Drum pattern, which is literally world famous now. We have pieces of pottery all over the world, and people come back year after year to collect it, and it's her hand-painted pottery. And then not only do we have the pottery, we have her paintings, and she's a painter, and so it's just all about art and music, and that's how we live our lives.
I heard that you have a DVD of the Frisco Jubilee, and we'd like to tell the folks about that and share some of that with you.
Well, the DVD came on because one of our patrons, Bob Boyer, Bob's right here behind the camera. I guess I'll speak freely, but but Bob had come to the show for years, for the whole summer, and he was standing there one day, and I said, "Bob, what do you do for a living? I'm just curious as to what you do."
Who are you?
He said, "Well, I'm retired from NBC for 25 years and was a cameraman and worked with Reagan and all this sort of stuff." And I was impressed, and so I said, "Bob, you wouldn't feel like wanting to maybe do a little show about us here and all the music, and we could put something together?" And he was ready to go right then, and so we sat down and worked on it, and it took quite a long time, but it was a very wonderful production, and it documents a lot of all the local musicians and local music. We're sort of well known for our original music that we've been writing. We don't really play as much cover stuff as other bands do. We're more interested in playing songs that we write, and we like to present those to people, and so far it's been a big success.
A lot of different folks on the DVD.
Yeah, we have Calvin and Johnny, and Calvin and Johnny, to give you a little background, Calvin Burris and Johnny Williams were friends from way back, from years and years back. And Calvin had the first gas station that was here in Buxton for a long time. And both of them had hurricanes that forced them to meet, because Calvin decided from when they were in Hatteras, or Calvin's father decided when they were in Hatteras, when the big hurricane 44 came through there, they decided that the best thing to do is move to the highlands, and that was Buxton. And and so then Johnny, the same situation was with him. They figured there was a hurricane a little bit later on came on, and so Johnny moved to Buxton to get into the mountains away from the hurricanes there, and then became famous friends and began sang together for years and years and years, and their harmonies are just wonderful.
Fantastic. Let's listen to a little bit of Calvin and Johnny.
Let's do.
When I was the boy days of childhood, I used to play till evening shadows come, then winding down an old familiar pathway, I heard my mother call at set of sun, come home, it's supper time. The shadows lengthen fast.
That's an old favorite of mine, traditional supper time. You mentioned earlier, though, that a lot of the songs you do are originals.
Yeah, we do a lot of original writing. That's, like I said earlier, that's what we really like to do. One of the songs that I am most impressed with is my best friend Stosh. Stosh and I have been playing music for about 25 years together, and during that time, his mother was a big influence on everything we did, from getting in trouble to feeding us, and she passed on a few years back. And during Hurricane Isabel, Stosh wrote a song about his mother, about the old oak tree that was there, and the oak tree that was sitting behind his yard. And he was scared that she was going to blow out of that tree because the wind was blowing so hard. And the reason is he had her ashes put up in the tree, and that was her dying wish, to have her ashes put up in the crux of that old oak tree. And so Stosh was sitting in his office, as he tells it to us, and there she was. He was watching that little house and thinking about how strong that tree was and how strong his mother was. It was just a wonderful song.
You give me peace in times of worry. Remind us all of your ancient glory. See past trivial toward what matters, with eyes wide open and barely tattered.
And we stop and we wonder, how can this be? A poor work of nature, a live oak tree, 300 years old, continuing on, when mortal will live, and now they're gone. I was feeling all alone, wishing I was home, strolling by myself, just being around. Oh, I think about my beach, it seems so out of reach. I'm strolling by the Pamlico Sound.
What a great song. Who wrote that?
Well, Stosh and I wrote that song back last winter. We were cold and just had nothing to do, and that little tune, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, came in our head. So we developed the song instrumentally. And then the verses started coming to us. And actually, my wife and I wrote one of the verses driving in the car, just having a great time, just a good little tune. We everybody likes it and puts them in a good mood, so we enjoy playing it.
You mentioned that the pottery started in Ocracoke, and Martin Garish plays with you, and his home is Ocracoke as well.
Oh, yeah. Martin and I have been friends for a long time. I have a great respect for Martin's music. Martin has brought music to the whole Outer Banks area, and especially Ocracoke. And from a whole tradition, his father played music, and his uncle Jules sings with him, and they sing in the Ocracoke Opry that he's playing all over Ocracoke Island. But he wrote a song called "If I Could Just Go Back," which was about a lot of his friends. He's had a lot of people pass on in his family, and it's really a heartfelt song. It brings out the emotion in every time you hear Martin sing it, and it means the same every time he sings it, and just it gets me wet-eyed every time he sings it. I really enjoy listening to him.
I used to sit on Grandpa's porch and watch the world go by. I'd wonder when my grandma'd say, "My time does fly." It seems like only yesterday that Big Ike run the store, and we were cleaning up the mess from the storm of '44. I love to hear the stories of how it used to be, the tales of ships and sailors that sailed upon the sea, running barefoot down the old dirt road, swimming in the creek, playing tag on Nails Hill, geeking flounders on the reef. He would sit and tell me stories of how it was back then. Fish and fowl aplenty, and your neighbor was your friend. Now those times have gone away, they passed us by somehow. Oh, if I could just go back and know what I know now.
Another great song. Martin did a fantastic job. And of course, Stosh's was fantastic as well. Who are some of the other folks that play in the Jubilee?
Well, the Jubilee has changed a little bit. Of course, things change as they go along with the show. We've been very lucky to have a young lady by the name of April Trueblood who's playing bass with us, and what a voice. I mean, she just knocked us dead. And Speedy, our fiddle player, had called me over there one day and said, "Come listen to this tape." And it was all, I listened to April sing, and I knew April for 3 years. I had no idea she could sing like that. And then, so I came and talked to her about her singing and everything. I said, "Boy, I sure would be glad if you could play bass." And she goes, "Oh, I do." So I went, wow. And, speaking of Speedy, he's not just a musician or a fiddle player. Speedy is the core of our band and the core of the Frisco Jubilee. Speedy is 68 years old and has played with some of the greats. I mean, he's played on with Willie Nelson. He's played with Patsy Cline. He's played with George Jones. He's been there and done it, and we're so lucky to have him here. His songwriting ability just blows me away. He writes the most incredible music I've ever heard. He's just got them coming out at just one after the other. And the song that was featured on the DVD is "Riding Down the Beach Road." And that song is a very special song to us because it gets everybody going, and we just love it. But it's just one of many that Mr. Speedy Herb Price writes.
I'm driving down the beach road to my darling, driving down in the pouring rain. When I take you in my arms this morning, I'm gonna see those sunny skies again. I've traveled this big wide country, just doing what I was meant to do. I know I've got to do some changing. I can't stand the thought of losing you. I'm driving down the beach road to my darling, driving down in the pouring rain. When I take you in my arms this morning, I'm gonna see
Wes, I've had a great time. Thank you so much for sharing the story with us and some of the songs on the DVD.
Thank you, Ken. It's always a pleasure.
Driving down in the pouring rain. When I take you in my arms this morning, I'm gonna see those sunny skies.